My guest today is an actor, spokesperson, coach. She's been a model. She can pretty much do anything. It's pretty amazing. Like our good friend of the show, Mel Gorham, she appears in Unbelievable the Movie, now on Amazon Prime. Go watch it. It is hilarious. Kristin Bauer-Gross. Kristin, such an honor to be chatting with you today. The first question I had for you is just your role in this film. How did it come about?
Right. Well, it is an interesting story how it, or to me anyway, it's an interesting story how it came about. And I first heard about a friend of mine, my friend Martin sent me a note and said, "Hey, did you see there's a post on social media that the auditions are happening for this feature that's going to shoot in Buffalo?" So I looked it up and submitted. And then initially I received a request to audition for a different role, the role of Ellen. And um, I was having a chat with my acting coach that day, and she helps me with all different components of my career. And I was telling her, what do you think about this? The role they asked me to read for is a neurotic woman in her 60s. And I said, do you think is there an accident, or should I now audition for this, because am I going to really book a woman in her 60s, or wouldn't they just rather actually book somebody that is that age range? I love there being work for women in their 60s, but I want them to maybe, I don't know, should they get the role, or would they not pick me? And my coach, thank goodness, she said, you've got to give it your all, because you don't know. You don't know what they're looking for. You don't know what is going to happen. And she said, if you aren't right for that character, maybe they'll think of you for a different role. And my first audition started to go haywire because there was a blizzard in Buffalo, which can happen commonly. And so they let me audition over Zoom. And so I'm all prepped, memorized. I've been working on the role. I've come up with some really fun, or anyway, I thought funny moments. And um, so I'm on Zoom, and I guess they had the free version of Zoom that ends, very abruptly at 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, must be we're approaching that deadline. And, one of the directors says to me, you are a really funny lady. We didn't even know there's really any actresses up here in upstate New York, like real actresses, comedic actresses. And and then they said, and we're going to cut out in a couple seconds and we'll be in touch. And so the whole thing was feeling like it was really rolling, and then it ended really fast. And I was left thinking, okay, well, hopefully I hear from them. But like so many auditions, you don't know, and you sort of have to try to put it out of your mind and say, on to the next thing. I hope this works out. And if it's meant for me, it will. And so I don't know, a week or so later, I did hear from them. And um, they said they'd like me to come to Buffalo on a day when it's the weather was better, and I was going to have a callback. So I was thrilled. And then about 24 hours prior to that audition, I got a call and they said, well, we'd actually also like you to audition for this other role of Jenna. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay, well, I'm gonna start preparing for that role too, so that I really have both of them nailed as best I can in less than 24 hours. I was out in some other state on a job already, and so I didn't have a ton of time to dedicate to it, but I just felt really connected to the everything was so funny. It was written really funny, and I somehow connected to this immediately. So this I was really putting a lot of energy into it. So I come in to the studio in Buffalo, and I do both roles. And then all of a sudden, the directors are I hadn't. I hadn't expected this, but Scott Rubin has his hand on his head and he's pacing the floor and he's just saying, "Oh my God, we've been searching for this role for months. Oh my God." And he's pacing. And I'm thinking to myself in my head, either this is going really well or really bad. I'm not really sure which one. Hopefully good. And so, I left and there was a feeling of uncertainty, but I seem to have gotten a big response while I was there. So, I did get a call a week or two later and they said I booked it and it was one of probably the best days of my life. I was so thrilled. So most of my career has been in TV commercials as an actor, and I've been in over 100 TV commercials, and I was just really thrilled to get a main cast role in Unbelievable in a film that I could tell was going to be really funny on a topic that I was interested in. And I'm such a cheerleader for upstate and Western New York. And so I just, yeah, over the moon. And then even it still was a little uncertain then because they said they booked me, but then, you're not hearing, they have a lot of things going on behind the scenes that, gosh, I'm sure I don't even know about. And I'm not hearing anything and getting a deal. So, in writing a deal memo and I end up hearing that the dates have been changed and it's overlaps with a booking that I already had that was existing. So it was really, it somehow I managed to finagle things, but even then it was really, I wasn't sure until about 10 days before filming started that I was really going to be able to dedicate myself to it. I think I worked on it every day for 3 weeks. So it was a time commitment. And yeah, so I booked Jenna and what a role. Jenna has a wry sense of humor. And I think the thing that's exciting about Unbelievable that certainly Bills fans are going to love Unbelievable, but even if you're not a sports fan, a sports enthusiast, or interested in the Buffalo Bills, I think that most people can identify with how families are kind of crazy and dysfunctional, and somehow you love your family, but some things just don't, they clash. And um, so when you watch the movie, you feel a piece of your own life, or at least I did, and I think a lot of people do, will see their own life and their own dysfunctions of their family and their community and their neighborhood within the movie. Um, all the idiosyncrasies and, the crazy neighbor and um, your one relative that can't quite watch the movie and they have to sit in another room, and the one relative that maybe can't shut up while the game is on and you're just trying to listen to the game. So all those idiosyncrasies.
I was actually listening to I think it was a radio interview that you gave, and you were talking about about your character, and you were saying how there are like some similarities between your life and the character you played in the film, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yes, when I auditioned for Jenna, I was thinking, oh my God, this is like a parallel with my own life. So my husband is a insane Buffalo Bills fan, lifelong Buffalo Bills fan. In the summertime, if you're in our neighborhood, he is riding the lawnmower with a giant Bills flag attached to the back that waves in the wind as he mows. And so that's sort of a visual you can imagine. So Jenna also marries into this family, and she's probably like, I don't know what I got into, but it doesn't seem that bad. If you might as well join them, right? If you can't beat them, join them. So we don't really know for sure, if Jenna really loves the Bills or if she's just come to the conclusion that she's gonna be a joiner. And but her husband is. heart and soul a Bills fan, and she ends up part of this kind of, you know, crazy family. And here she is at this Super Bowl party. And when you're there and watching the movie, you sort of feel like you're there with the family, and you can see parts of your own family within that. So it was interesting, the parallel between my character and my own life. And then at the premiere, I actually got to meet the real Jenna, who who the character I played was based off of. And I would have loved to have gotten to have a whole conversation with her maybe one day. Maybe one day I will. But that was cool. We got a selfie on stage of, you know, Kristin is the role of Jenna and the real Jenna in real life, which is really cool. A lot of the characters were based on real people, I found out. So
To meet the actual person like that the character was based on, and you get to make that connection. Gosh, I imagine that was pretty dang awesome.
yes, it was really I think I screamed when she came up to me and she said, "You played me in the movie." And I was like, and I said, "Let's get a photo." And of course we're at the beautiful historic North Park theater for the premiere, where you feel like you've stepped back in time 100 years, and just the ceiling and the architecture and the what is that called? The glass, the that I don't know. It's such an incredibly beautiful theater that the whole experience, yeah, was amazing. It was an amazing experience. I was just so proud because um I felt, you know, that I had really done my best to do the best in the film, but that's one of the amazing parts of acting, is that you get to be, or acting or producing or directing or being in the crew, is that you get to be part of something bigger than yourself, and that something that will live on, you know, if not forever, for a long time. And that it really felt like we created something we could be so proud of, and that would touch so many people and people would laugh. And I also just think that working on Unbelievable really opened my eyes to the genre of comedy. I never thought of myself as a funny person. I always thought I was really not funny. And, you know, in my early career, I was modeling. So, modeling is kind of like acting without speaking. You have to convey everything through facial expression and poses and emotion. And the 2D world is so different than 3D, than video. Um, and I also don't really think models get the credit that maybe a lot of them deserve. It's more of a Wild West kind of industry, whereas acting has some good structure and parameters and a union for actors. Um, but as I was transitioning, it felt like, okay, well, I kind of stepped into commercials next, and commercials have come a long way. Commercials used to be maybe always really cheesy and over the top. And I think, especially in recent history, we've really seen commercials become like short films, where in 15 or 30 seconds, you know, a whole story is told, and you might laugh and cry, and the actors are really powerful. But coming from a primarily commercial and modeling background, and having the opportunity to step into a role where I was in most of the film, and I had 50 pages of dialogue to conquer and to think about, you know, all of the actions. And it was um, really exciting. And it made me realize I I think I really like comedy, and I think I'd like to do more of it. So that's what I have to say about about comedy and about, but Scott Rubin, the way he wrote the film, he's truly I mean, comical master. I mean, the jokes he wrote into the film. I mean, you could probably watch the movie 5 times and still like pick up more jokes because he
Mhm.
wrote so many jokes in. And some of the as I was working to prepare, um, sometimes I'd read the same sentence and say it different ways and then realize there was a joke written that I didn't even realize was a joke. I don't know. So it made me understand that there's so many layers to doing comedy and yeah, and I learned a lot from Mel because she has so much acting experience under her belt and her physical comedy is really strong and it made me realize that besides expressions and dialogue that really your physicality and your physical comedy is another whole layer to it that um, was really fun to see her work side by side with her and learn from her and see how oh yeah how she took maybe something that I thought was a simple line and she made it so funny. I'm like, wow, she made that so funny. How did she make it so funny? So such an art. Yeah. Even filming the movie was kind of comical because filming Unbelievable, it was actually shot in the home of one of the directors, and it was a historic home. So there's the main level, if you just enter the home where they're doing all the filming. And much of the movie was filmed in a living room and kitchen, which is where, if you're having a Super Bowl party at your home, is probably where most of the action would be happening. Um, but then upstairs was actor holding, makeup, wardrobe, hair. And um, if you've ever been in a historic home, if you take one tiny little step, everything creaks. So it was a real practice to maintain pretty much absolute silence. And filming is on a film is, it's quite rigorous. 12-hour days. Many films shoot much longer. I really appreciated that Unbelievable said they really wanted to make this sustainable and that they were really focusing on sticking to a 12-hour day. But if you're an actor holding for a lot of the day, you really do have to stay pretty still. And everyone working upstairs, the whole team, the wardrobe and hair and makeup, and everyone else upstairs has to also maintain that quiet. So that was kind of added to the hilarity of it, kind of. We really felt like a family in that home, and we were all sharing upstairs. Once you're upstairs, there's one restroom, so that was also another level to that kind of comical situation. And you, if yeah, so when I was driving in, they were in that moment during filming the all of the New York State Thruway rest stops were under construction. So you could not stop on the New York State Thruway and use the restroom because they were all under construction. So I really had to only go to the bathroom once I got on set. And so then sometimes you would have to try to remember to be patient and, you might have to wait for a few people once you arrive. But all these things, it's what makes up your experience. And it's you get to know some of the other characters have truly become close friends. And I hope I get to work with them for many years to come. So it was one of the most amazing teams ever to work together. I think that a lot of times you work with a team and there's always one or two people that are slacking or they don't really try or they always show up late or they're not prepared or they're rude or they are not humble. They have this sense of entitlement, vanity, narcissists, and that was not the case on this film, which I 100% just really appreciated. And it made working with everybody so wonderful because it felt like everybody was really committed to their craft and to making this the best film they could. So, yes, you got to go out, go to Amazon Prime, you type in Unbelievable exclamation point the movie, unbelievable exclamation point the movie, and see it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I know that they were doing showings and stuff around the area, and you got to like go out some, and you were like doing some like little meet and greets, Q&As kind of things.
I was so I was glad that they, I mean, the producers and directors of this movie were really committed to developing a following for it, which so many movies get produced, and if they actually get finished and then they get seen as like another whole piece of the puzzle. So it was amazing how they worked really hard to get this shown all across the nation, from New York to LA, and all these little um, nooks and crannies in between. So I was glad to get to go to a number of the premieres. The main premiere that initially happened in Buffalo at North Park Theater, but also a number of other premieres. One that stands out in my mind that makes me smile is my husband's hometown had a premiere, and it was so cool to get to invite his family and his friends. And I did a meet and greet with an autograph signing there, and that was really fun. That really stands out, but really special to get to be a part of a lot of the screenings, and they made them really fun. They did raffles, and who doesn't like to win raffle prizes?
And it's fantastic, fantastic. And then I mean, just in a general for you, I mean, seeing the love that the movie has gotten from Bills fans in the community, and then I mean, really even just people around the country. I mean, what is that? What has that meant to you? Seeing that.
This was really a movie that was for the fans. So I think I think it's been done, where movies have been made about the Buffalo Bills. But to make a movie for the fans, I mean, Bills Mafia is a really passionate group. I was just at a game 2 weeks ago, and the energy there is really electric. And people, as much as Bills fans, you imagine in your head, jumping on tables and some chaos, but everyone was so excited and so kind, and I really enjoyed myself. And I think that it's really brought the community together, and that people in upstate and Western New York, we want to support our local team, and the Bills really represent that. And I think that I think that people like a film that represents kind of them. And you and if you see the movie, you sort of see how they tried to showcase different types of fans. And I think that's really cool. People can identify with themselves, their family when they see it.
How did your interest in acting and modeling, how did that first start?
So I knew from a really young time, maybe 13 or 14, that this is truly what I wanted to do. I don't think I could verbalize that and say that out loud until I was probably close to age 20, because I really felt like it was a crazy, a crazy career that a lot of people, especially I grew up in a small town, and I think people would say things like, well, what do you really want to do? Or what is your real career going to be? Um, and I tried to do a lot of different jobs and careers, but deep down, I felt like I wasn't being true to myself and that I was struggling to be happy. And I decided that even if it was going to be the hardest thing of my life and like climbing a mountain, that I had to do the thing that I felt like I was meant to do. Sounds kind of corny, but um, so I think I was also really influenced by the small town I grew up in. So I'm from a small town in upstate New York, and I just remember as a young girl looking around, and I felt like a lot of people weren't happy and they weren't doing things that made them feel alive and excited. And life is tough, and not everybody gets the opportunities to do things they want to do or has the finances or ability to, um, or has the belief in themselves. But I promised myself then as a little girl, I said I'm gonna have to save myself so I don't end up kind of like stuck in this misery that I see on people's faces here. And not all people's faces. Lots of people in the small town that I grew up with, I am 100% sure they are absolutely happy in their lives and they looked happy. But I think, especially looking at women's faces, I saw a lot of moms that looked overworked, underappreciated, serving everybody else, making their children and their husband and their family and their household and their relatives and their parents all came first. And um and then a lot of them, it seemed like it felt like, well, what is left for me then? What's left for me? Like just crumbs. Like, where is my joy? What is my thing? What is my passion? And so I think that really stuck with me. And I started acting just in plays and in school. And in high school, as a junior, I auditioned for a play, and the director came out to announce who got what roles I don't know, the following day or the following week. And he mentioned that the lead role was going to go to an actress who cried with real tears in her audition, and it was me. So I just couldn't even believe it. I was so shocked. I was going to be excited to have gotten probably any role, but to have beat out every senior girl for the lead role, I was just really shocked. I think that was the first moment that I thought, oh wow, maybe I'm not too bad. Maybe I'm not terrible at this. Um, but at the time, the more I researched the industry and I researched opportunities, it felt to me that there might be a lot more opportunities if you have no money and no connections and no training, to kind of start with modeling. So I think that was really, I felt like you can't do everything at once. I spent all of my college years, um, usually working some other job. But as it got more expensive, I really started to lean into modeling to help me pay for a lot of things. And I used my second, they encouraged you in college. First, I went to a 2-year college because my father, he was like, you don't really know what you want to do for sure. So are you going to spend a ton of money? Initially, I'd gotten into NYU and Syracuse University, and I was going to go to one of those schools right away for my freshman year. But I ended up deciding to go to a 2-year community college. And in a way, it was a small community where I was really able to thrive. And I got a very high GPA, and they asked me to join their, I don't know if they called it their honors program or their advanced program or something like that. And I think that that did help me because once I transferred to a four-year college, it was extremely rigorous, at least the school that I transferred to anyway, Wells College. It was very rigorous, required extensive reading, writing so many papers that are very long, and I felt like I was better prepared having had a more small group setting approach and having been part of the honors program at a smaller community college. I help Things helped set me up for better success. But for me, college in general was kind of, I didn't really want to go to college. I told my agent when I was about probably 16 or 17, I said, I just don't want to go to college. I want to just start working right away at this is my dream. I just want to get started on my professional career. And she told me, Kristen, this was Anne Marie Stonecipher, and she has been a longtime friend, mentor, and my longtime agent until she passed away in 2018 from cancer. But she told me, Kristen, I have seen girls that are more talented, prettier, and more well connected than you go off to New York and LA and come back not successful, and you are 100% going to go to college. She said, just do it. Just do it. Pick something, and you'll probably thank yourself later that you developed some additional skills and that you got that sort of like under your belt. And I am glad for that experience. And I mean, I made the most of college, but I think I already knew when I was there that this didn't feel like my end all be all. Because of course, looking back, maybe it would have been great to have gone to college for acting. But I mean, the kind of culturally, the environment I grew up in, that would have been a silly thing to um, it would have been considered a silly thing to major in because people want to hear, well, what is your your real career that you plan to do? So it maybe would be okay if you minored in it or something, but I felt really compelled or pressured that I should get at least a bachelor's degree in something completely other than performing or acting or yeah. So I really appreciated though going to a women's college. My final uh, degree was from Wells College, which was the second oldest women's college in the state of New York and one of the oldest colleges for women in the nation. So I think my experience of spending my first 2 years of college in a co-ed community college kind of situation, and then spending the rest of my time in a school that really focused on leadership for women was also interesting and helped me learn to use my voice and to um, try to stand up and use my voice.
Yeah, for sure. And when you were at Wells College, you majored in psychology. How did you decide to go with that as your major?
Well, I started out as an English major, which I love to write. I've always loved writing. And in high school and prior to that, I had won a few creative writing awards. Um, More recently, I wrote a column more recently for a few years in Rochester Woman magazine, which is now an online magazine. And this was the issue that I was on the cover of, which is pretty awesome. And um, I quickly learned, though, that my brain cannot read thousands of pages a week. And an English major, I mean, the amount of reading that was assigned really boggled my mind. And I think that if I was in a place where I wasn't also needing to work while I was going to college, maybe I could have had time to do that much reading, but it I was just getting buried. So I realized I needed to major in something else. And I was always deeply fascinated by people and behavior and why people do what they do and understanding why people do what they do. So psychology sounded very interesting. And since my goal was to be a model and actor and performer and a creative, um, I guess I felt like, okay, well, what can I do where I can graduate on time so I can get closer to my goal faster? Um, and there were only a few degrees that were going to allow me to finish my degree on time, and psychology was one of them. Wells College at the time also had a strong psychology program. But looking back, I mean, today, if I was coming into the process of deciding what to major for college today, I think it would be very different. Today, I see how women more and more are really encouraged into STEM and the hard sciences and engineering and math. And I, I still don't really think that was the case, even though this was not incredibly long ago. So I think women were more culturally sort of not pushed, but it was more acceptable to go into the social sciences and more common. And I don't think I would have thought of myself as somebody who would become an engineer, even though my father was an engineer. So I don't know. It's really interesting how if I could go back to high school and have been maybe received different guidance or counseling, or if there's a whole class in high school that's dedicated to teaching people what all the different careers are. And now we have social media and YouTube and AI that we can ask a lot of questions that at the time I wouldn't have been able to really research as well on my own. So I think going back, maybe I wouldn't have majored in psychology. Maybe I would have majored in something totally different. But that was how I came to the conclusion. And I was the only person in my friend group, unless one of my friends is watching this and they remember something otherwise. I was the only one in my friend group that I completed my 4 year degree on time in 4 years and was done. So go me.
Hey, right on, right on. Have there been any times like throughout your career, where you would say that you've used your psychology degree, or that's I guess been like useful?
Oh, yeah. Well, in some ways, I think I use it every day. And then my biggest first win with my psychology degree was one day I came home and I told my mom, Mom, I think you have dyslexia. And I learned that in some kind of Psych 101 class in high school. And it turns out she does. And it was something that when she was growing up, as a young girl in the 1950s was totally not on people's radar. At school, they just told her she was dumb and that she couldn't read and she was bad at reading. Well, it turns out her brain doesn't recognize phonemes and she's dyslexic and she's not dumb at all. She's actually very smart and talented. And learning that also changed my mother's whole life and kind of trajectory of how she thinks about herself. So there have certainly been a lot of really day-to-day applications like that where it's improved my life. But yes, in 2008, when there was a huge economic crash, I was living in Miami working full-time as a model, and the economy crashed. Nobody knew how long this was going to be devastating. Overnight, jobs dried up, and the jobs that were left, say a gig that used to pay $3,000 maybe now paid $300. And you had a lot more people scrambling and auditioning for these now low paying jobs because there were fewer and far between. And I um I had like a soap making business at the time that I was doing on the side, and I was a vendor someplace, and I met a woman who owned a business um, that was helping people out of homelessness, and I became a certified trauma and recovery um, counselor. And it was the first time that I ever received a request from an employer that they wanted to see an actual copy of my degree. And I think I called my mom that night and said, they want to see my degree. I'm so excited that this is getting put to use. And so I did work there for a while, and that was really eye-opening. And I think it helped me too now in the future as a coach. It's helped me having worked with lots of different kinds of people. And in college, they encouraged everyone to do two internships where I went to college anyway. So I did one in my field of study, and I interned for a school psychologist. And then I did a second degree in my area of interest and um, ended up working for a while at Elite Model Management in New York City, which taught me a lot, including that I was not going to be pursuing a modeling career in New York City because I would be considered at dwarf like height. So at 5'7", I am a perfectly great height for an actress, but at 5'7", I am considered dwarf-like in the modeling industry. So I learned a lot about the different markets that exist in the United States and how the different idiosyncrasies of each one. And I would see I was working at Elite as an assistant to the director of scouting. So I got to see how they placed girls from all over the world. And I mean, probably less than one out of 10,000 applicants would get signed. It was extremely, I mean, when I say competitive, it was probably more, from what the research I've read, it's actually more competitive and more challenging to become a successful fashion model than it is to become a brain surgeon. Um, so the amount of submissions they would receive on a daily and weekly basis and the amount of people that they would sign was really eye-opening. And it did help me learn, though, a lot about the different markets within the US and where else might be a better fit for me. And I ended up deciding on Miami for that reason. One, I mean, I grew up in cold, rural upstate New York that could be a little bit like living in an Alaskan tundra at times. So there seemed to be a certain sort of glamour to thinking, oh, I could get up and walk to the beach and swim in the ocean any day that I want to. But it also was a very different market and a more forgiving height wise, and a place that there were still a lot of opportunities. And I knew that my interest was more in the direction of commercial and commercials. So Miami had a lot of both glamorous, and swimsuit model type work, but they also had a lot of commercial work and a lot of films were shooting there. So that was where I did get my start for the first time to work on really big, you know, feature film productions as background and to just get my feet wet and to see what that was like. I remember I was a flight attendant in the movie Red Eye, which was a Wes Craven DreamWorks production. And that was such an incredible eye-opening experience seeing what being on such a big, high caliber um, film set was like. And then I got to do that all the time living in Miami Beach. And I could walk to tons of my auditions because I lived on Miami Beach. So it was a really interesting experience. But then in 2008, when the economy tanked, it really upended my whole career and probably thousands or millions of other people's careers in different ways, not, in all industries. And then my mom got sick, and I made the decision. I was then working as the trauma and recovery counselor at the time, and still auditioning and booking what I could, but there was less work available. And I ended up making the decision to move back to upstate New York, which was really challenging. And my brain felt like I didn't complete, like I didn't reach the success yet that were my goals and that were in my heart. But I felt like family is really important, and I wanted to be able to come back and be with family and to be able to help my mom through this difficult time, which she did recover from, thankfully. Um, but the final takeaway that I decided on was I decided, Kristin, you are going to make your own path. You can hear everyone tell you that living in a small market, there's no work, and that this is going to destroy your career, and that this is never going to work out. And I decided, guess what? I'm going to do things my own way. I'm going to have the life I want to have. And if I want to do that from here, then I'm just going to have to figure that out. And I have to put blinders on and not listen to all the naysayers, because they were just everywhere. So um and I think that it's really exciting, that when COVID did hit and self-taping became the norm, that in the moment it didn't feel that way initially, because there was no work for you know actors and models, and I do a lot of hosting and spokesperson work too, and that was all gone overnight as well. But the silver lining was that I could now self-tape here in my office for anything, everywhere, and I just need to go get to the job once I book the job. And that was the game changer. That was really a game changer. I had probably been hoping and praying for several years. But I also made the most of what I could, when I returned here, and I was primarily still modeling at that time. But my agent said to me, why we should be sending you out on speaking roles. Why aren't we? And I said, well, I'm not a trained actor. I mean, I've taken some workshops here and there. I don't think that really counts. And so she was like, well, are you waiting for like somebody with a magic wand to tell you that you're allowed to do this, that that's okay? And she said, if you are, I'm telling you that we're going to start submitting you for speaking roles, because you're ready and this is much more lucrative. And so then I did start taking more acting classes, and getting more serious about speaking and hosting. And then during COVID, once I realized I could audition for film from my own office, then that was a game changer. Then I got more serious. I got working with acting coaches and taking programs in TV and film to really improve my acting chops, and just becoming a sponge.
You mentioned, getting into presenting and your spokesperson work. How did your work with the Subaru come about?
Oh, yes, that's such a fun question. Well, when I was living in Miami, what I was finding was, first of all, I decided to take my career very seriously. So some some people that I came into contact with, they'd complain, oh, I'm not booking, or I don't have any jobs coming up this month. But I organized my life very differently. When I quit my full-time job that I had, I was working in Connecticut as an executive assistant. And when I did leave that job, which that job was such a blessing, and I'm so thankful for it. It allowed me to save up kind of some money so that I could make some of these big moves. I mean, I ended up just packing everything into my car, and I moved alone with just my stuff in my car to Miami, and I knew nobody. I didn't know anybody, and was just determined to make this work. But once I got there and I started to get my feet wet and I got into things, I realized, well, there's highs and lows where sometimes you book a lot and sometimes you're really slow. And the way I organized my career was I got up in the morning, I walked 1 mile to the gym. I spent 60 to 90 minutes at the gym working out, doing yoga, weight training, all different dance, all different kinds of exercise. I walked 1 mile back. And then if I didn't have auditions or any bookings that day, I spent from 9 to 5 submitting to jobs, improving my materials, and working on my career from my computer. And not until 5 or 6, when it's dinner time, would I close my laptop. So I took it really seriously as a full-time job. So when people would say, well, when you're not booking or auditioning, what are you doing? I'm like, what am I doing? I'm doing all of the other things you need to, in the early stages, you're trying to get opportunities, you're trying to get auditions into your inbox, you're trying to meet new people, you're trying to gain opportunities. And so that was my full-time job. I spent at least 40 hours a week doing that. And I was driving, I think, to an audition one day, and I heard the radio spokespeople talking about the top three types of um, businesses or companies that have the biggest advertising budgets. And so my ears sort of perked up and I was thinking about it. And they said it was at the time, at the time it was alcohol companies, cigarette companies, and car companies. And I thought, it'd be really good if I started to do some other things that I enjoy, that I feel good at, that are also flexible but pay well in between the modeling and acting jobs. And what could that be? So I started working as a brand ambassador. Sometimes they call that promotional modeling. And the first time I ever worked the Miami Auto Show, I walked up to one of the girls that was in this beautiful outfit. She had a microphone in her hand and she's talking to a crowd of people about, I think it was a Lexus or a Cadillac. And when she finished, I said, how do I get your job? I said, I know you travel all over the nation doing this. They provide you with all this beautiful wardrobe. They train you guys, so you know a lot about the cars. I said, I love cars. My dad was a mechanic before he became an engineer. And I was always in the garage working with him, putting in engines, helping him with, even if I'm just holding the flashlight, I would help him from a really young age with cars and car stuff, and I feel very comfortable around cars. And so eventually I learned everything I could about that niche, which is automotive. I mean, I guess you could call it automotive marketing or automotive presenter, product specialist work. And so I learned that there are a few agencies that hire specifically automotive talent. And I got an audition with somebody who hires that type of talent. And it took a while for me to make my way to a team that I really fit with and resonates with me. And that now I've been with Subaru, what, I don't know, 11 or 12 years. And I've been doing automotive marketing. Automotive marketing has really allowed me to continue to work as a talent, as an actor, and components of it have allowed me to continue working on my craft while I'm getting paid to work for automotive companies, because I'm at car reveals on a microphone, because I do interviews with media and the news, because I'm talking one-on-one with the public and the community. It allows me to continue working on those aspects of my skill set while doing work that I find interesting and fun and exciting and traveling the nation doing it. So
How do you prepare for these public speaking engagements that you do?
yeah, well, that It could depend on the engagement, but and I definitely prepare. I really try to have a plan. Um it depends on if I'm provided a script. In some other cases, like right now when I'm traveling the nation for Subaru or other automotive companies and speaking, at car reveals and auto shows. For example, if I'm flying to the Los Angeles Auto Show or the New York Auto Show, where close to 1 million people attend those auto shows each year, and I'll be in front of a lot of people. Often they allow us to sort of create our own script. Sometimes you're provided with a script. But if you're provided with a script, I like to make it my own in a way where I don't change the facts, but I make it sound engaging and interesting because people aren't there to learn facts. People can look up facts on their phone, they can read the press release and find facts. They want it to be exciting and interesting and to listen about this exciting car that has just come on stage, and maybe it's been revealed in an exciting way with lights and sounds and music. So I'm trying to entertain them, but also have them catch some facts in between. And I like to practice if I mean, sometimes it's really quick because maybe I just finished filming Unbelievable or I was just working on a TV commercial the prior day. So I prefer to do some prep work at home, but if it comes down to it, this is where I think sometimes actors or talent in general can miss important pockets of time because they don't think of these as time. But your time on the airplane, your time waiting to get on an airplane, your time when you're doing your hair and makeup before you head to the job you're on, that's all really time that you could spend preparing, and I definitely do. I'll get my hairbrush in my hotel room, and I'll have my hairbrush in my hand, and I'll stand and pretend that I'm giving the talk or the speech or the presentation. If I'm hosting or emceeing, I'll probably try to really understand the business I'm working for first, understand what their goals are, know who I'm introducing, make sure I'm saying the names right, make sure I understand who the people are and what their goals are, so that then I can also maybe create some funny moments, some funny jokes, some engaging content along the way. And um and then to know that once you've done some preparation, that you can put it to bed. It's enough. It's enough. And you're allowed to rest and start fresh the next day. I usually do like to look at things quickly right before I go on stage. So let's say I prepared in advance, and then now we're on the day and I'm about to go on stage. I do usually like to get some water, go use the restroom, and then briefly either on my phone or if I have it typed out, to look at my notes and go over my bullet points because I try to have my bullet points planned out in my head, um, so that I can feel confident about the order of which I'm speaking about things. And I think it's great to be flexible too, because especially auto shows are kind of like live theater. You've got the crowd right in front of you, and people may interject, and it can be more interesting if you allow them to and you don't let that throw you off. So a lot of times I like to ask, like, who owns X, Y, and Z car in the audience, or who's excited to be here at the 100th anniversary of this X, Y, and Z auto show, or to get the crowd to feel like they're part that you're part of this, and to be engaged. And then if they do respond, that makes it more interesting for everyone. But you do have to be ready as the presenter or the actor to allow for that sort of improv moment and to be able to react as a human and come back with a true, authentic sort of reaction.
I was watching a presentation you gave for Subaru, and I really loved your just genuine energy and your ability to connect with the audience like you were talking about. I mean, if I'm in the audience, I want to buy a Subaru because you made that connection.
Thank you. I think I've watched so many presentations where you just see the person, they get on stage and they're like, okay, welcome so and such, and they don't seem excited themselves. So why should the audience seem excited? Why should the audience give you their ear? Why should they give you their time? Why should they stop to stand in our display? And I am really excited about the companies that I work for and the products that we have. So I should be excited. Um, but at the same time, if you, the person that are sharing the information, sharing the presentation, if you don't have enthusiasm and excitement, then you can't expect your audience to. Yeah. So I think about how I feel as the audience and what I like to see and what I like to hear. And then I try to think about this is not about me. This is about the audience. This is about the fans. This is about the attendees. And how can I make them interested, engaged? How can I make them feel special? How can I make them feel heard? Yeah.
I want to ask you about your coaching work. When and how did you first get into coaching?
Ooh, well, sometimes I would feel a little frustrated as a talent that you feel at the mercy of agencies, you feel at the mercy of the economy. Um, and I wanted to develop something that was sort of like my own. And it took me a while to think about, well, what is that? What would that be? And I really enjoyed as a counselor and working in the psychology field, being able to help people and to be able to help people solve problems creatively, think out of the box. And it's so rewarding to help people. So in 2014, I got really excited and I got a degree. I got a 1 year certification as a health coach, from the Integrative Institute for Nutrition, as an integrative health coach. And I mean, I have a strong interest in health, which some people at a quick glance might think like, well, that's pretty different kind of niche than acting, modeling, spokesperson, talent work. But really, there are no sick days as a talent, and you are constantly focused on feeling your best so that you can bring a ton of energy to every project you work on. So, and if you feel your best, you look your best. If you look your best, you feel your best. And I think that so much of my life became wrapped into health and what it means to be healthy that I was like, well, this sounds like an interesting thing to do. There's no schools to become a uh, or programs that I know of to become a coach for actors and models. So that was not even on my radar. But once I got started health coaching, it was starting to become apparent to me that maybe I should be doing a different type of coaching because people were constantly um, messaging me uh, in when they'd see me in person, asking me lots of questions, like I'm planning to retire. I have always wanted to be an actor. I don't really know what to do. I don't know all the tech. How do you do self-taping? How do you get started? My daughter wants to become a model. I don't want her to get scammed. I don't know what to do. Is this even a field I should, help her get into? I'm a mom. I want something that is just fun for me to do, but maybe I'm too old for this, or maybe I missed the boat, or maybe this isn't for me. But it always sounded really exciting, and um, it's something maybe I used to do or I always wanted to do. So uh, constantly getting all these questions made me think maybe I'm not doing the right kind of coaching that I should be doing or that I was meant to do. And a piece that I left out was that when I did move back to upstate New York, I spent a few years working inside of a talent agency. So I worked as in booking at AMS Models, and when I left, um, I was the booking director. So I really got a whole new education, which really transformed my talent career because it helped me take rejection way less personally. I started to really see the process that clients go through to select talent. And I also got to understand, how do you negotiate deals, the behind the scenes of casting and that sort of thing in a much deeper way than I could have ever understood otherwise. So I think some people in my area saw me as kind of an somebody that was an expert, or even though I don't think of myself as an expert, but they saw me as maybe an expert in the area. And the frustrating part for me was I'd give people a few tips, to help them in their journey, but then I would try to refer them to somebody. And there's a lot of people that do um, teach acting, like acting technique. So that was easy to refer out. Lots of people doing that. And then there are coaches that are amazing. But what I ended up finding was none of them specialize in the region that I live in. None of them focus on small market actors and models. Most of them are focused on major market actors and models, which I have experience working in major markets, having lived for most of 10 years between Miami and New York City. But um, I did know a lot about the market in upstate New York between Buffalo, Syracuse, Albany, Rochester, and all of the little nooks and crannies in between. So one day a light bulb went off, and I said to myself, I can't be a health coach anymore. I'm supposed to help people with the thing that I really needed help with when I was getting started, and specifically people that live in my region, even though I've helped people all over the country now, and especially people who live in other small markets across the country. But that was kind of how I got started coaching, was out of demand for honest industry advice and trying to find people to refer people to. But agents and casting directors, they're really busy. They don't have time to just help new talent or plateaued talent or talent that are trying to get to the next level. And I didn't necessarily think of myself as the best choice to help them, but I can help a lot of people, and now I have helped a lot of people. And um I do feel really proud of that. So yeah. I have a longtime mentor friend and dance teacher, Sean McLeod. And he has a saying that you're only as successful as the number of people you bring with you. You're only as successful as the number of people that you bring with you. And what that means to me is that if you make it to the top and you're alone and you didn't help anyone and you kicked everyone on the way up, then you can't really count yourself as a success. And I truly believe there's room for everyone at the top, no matter what your goal is, no matter what your dream is. So I don't think of other people as my competition. I think of myself because I'm probably my own worst enemy. I think that there's room for everyone at the top. I think there's room for everyone to succeed, and that nobody is alike. Everybody has their own strengths, their own skills, and those are things that you can improve on. So sometimes when people are frustrated, like this isn't working out or that isn't working out, well, sometimes it's about reimagining. You have to think differently. You have to reimagine your dream. You have to get some new skills. You have to jump back into training. Yep. um I think that it's been really interesting seeing also the wide variety of people that I've helped coaching. Like right now, I've got men and women, I have people of all ages. I have um, yeah, people of all different walks of life. And I think the thing in common is that they're willing to believe in themselves because really, you know, to work with a coach, you have to believe in yourself enough that you think that with with more guidance, with more help, that you're worth it. You have to believe you're worth it. You have to believe that you can succeed. And I think I wish for myself that I had worked with coaches and gotten help sooner because I think it would have really leaped me forward in my own career. I would be so many steps ahead of where I am now myself. Um, yeah, so with that, if people want to learn more about me and what I do, my website's kristinb.com, Kristin with all eyes, KRISTINB.com. And I have a free newsletter, so you can sign up for that on my website if you so fancy that. Happy to have you.
In your opinion, just what are the most important keys to living a happy and a healthy life?
Yeah. Um, I think you do have to keep trying, even when things are tough and you want to give up. I think that it's important to be in some ways selfish with your health because companies and businesses and the work you do and everyone who's in your life may want your time and your energy. And you have to think for yourself, how can I steal away or how can I make and create enough priority and enough time so the things that help me stay healthy will keep me healthy. And for me, some of those things are prioritizing sleep, relationships that are important to me, friends and family, um, moving my body, um, and I also am a big proponent of paying attention to eating whole foods. So a whole food is a food that has one ingredient. If you pick up an apple has apple in it. If you pick up, um, what's another example? Any whole food is just a one ingredient food. An avocado only has avocado in it. Um, so these processed foods that have a list of 20 or 30 ingredients that you can't pronounce, these should be lessened in our diet. So I might feel crazy or people might think I'm crazy, but a lot of the time when I'm preparing for a job, a lot of it is logistical. I'm trying to, sure, be prepared with whatever the role is, but I'm also thinking about what time do I need to leave my house? When should I be eating my breakfast? When should I be having lunch? Will there be crafty provided? Will there not be? And if there is food provided, it's not always necessarily really something that's going to make me feel great the whole rest of the day. And so I pack a lot of meals when I'm traveling for jobs. I almost always bring a meal with me on the airplane. Airplanes, unless you're traveling internationally, you don't get a meal on an airplane anymore anyway. So, and if you go to an airport and you buy a meal, it is probably going to be, pretty pricey and probably not even necessarily what you want because the choices are more limited in a lot of airports. So I think it's great to plan ahead and think about what would I love to eat today? And then you just pack it and you bring it with you. And I know that a lot of rules are, when you're in an airplane, are yes, you have to be paying attention to am I bringing liquids and that sort of thing. But there are a lot of things you can pack that don't have liquids in them. In most cases, um, a sandwich, salads, these are easy to pack and they don't have a lot of liquid. You can just put them in a little container, put the container in a Ziploc baggie that's clear, and you bring it in your carry-on bag with you onto the plane. And then once you're hungry and everyone else is starving, you get to pull out your delicious meal that was exactly what you wanted, that you already made at home, that is healthy and nourishing and makes you feel great. And if you wanted that chocolate square at the end of your meal, guess what? You got it because you packed it. And they didn't have it at the airport, then you didn't have it. Or if it was going to cost you another $12 to buy it in the airport, and you didn't want to spend that kind of money on a piece of chocolate, now you get exactly what you want when you plan it ahead. But this does take work and it does take effort. But I really think that because my life has revolved. I mean, my early career as a model, your brain does not stop thinking about how you look and how you feel and how you look and how you feel and I mean, it's playing on repeat so loudly compared to maybe people that do a lot of careers where their appearance is not as important to their job. And so you become really, really in tune with your body and trained in thinking about how do I feel. And if you're working 10, 12-hour days on set, you can't fake big energy all day. It's going to catch up to you. So you need to start thinking about, how do I truly take care of myself? How do I truly nourish myself? And it's not easier possible in every stage of life. If you are a new parent and you have an infant, and if you have a new job that's very stressful, but thinking about, this is something that over time has to be taken care of, because it's your health is the most important thing that you have. Without your health, you have nothing. And um and then health goes so much further beyond that into mental health, um and trying to surround yourself with people that are uplifting and believe in you. And I'm a big proponent of, if you're scrolling through social media and there's somebody that keeps popping up on your feed that makes you feel bad about yourself, you should unfollow them. You should unfollow them and stop watching their content. And making friends and trying to find people that you feel like build you up and are supportive of what you're doing and who you are. This is really important, especially for people who are, on this path of working in the entertainment field as actors, models, talent, because there is so much rejection. You really need to have things happening in any career that are outside of your work, that you love, that you believe in, that make you feel happy and uplifted. In the summer, I keep a garden, and I have a saying that miracles happen in the dirt. And I love cooking food that I grow. I find it personally very um, special, because you take these teeny, teeny, tiny seeds in the spring and you plant them, and they require all this effort and energy and care. And it's really a great metaphor for anything you do in life, because if you don't water when it's really hot, if you don't keep pulling the weeds, if you aren't paying attention and the bunnies eat everything, or maybe you want to feed the bunnies, that's another story though. But you have to pay attention to your garden to get everything to grow, and that could be a metaphor for your whole life. But I find it really fun to harvest things out of my own garden and then to make meals with food I grow. And it helps me really appreciate food and where food comes from. And I think so often we go to the grocery store and we take it, we take for granted how there's just all of these magical foods there that we can just purchase and go home. But everything took a lot of work and sun and water and energy to create these foods. And when you garden, you really feel that work, you really see that work. And it's really fun to see things grow and then to get to eat them. I have a funny story that when I was growing up, we lived in the countryside and my family had a garden and my parents got us very involved in gardening, which at the time I felt neutral about it. I don't think I necessarily thought it was cool or not cool. But my dad would always say, I would say, I don't want to weed. Why do we have to do this? This isn't fun. This is not fun. He would say, well, weeding builds character. And as a little girl, when friends or family would come over to the house and people come in and they ask you how you are and how school is and what's going on, I would say, I have a lot of character. And that's because I've been weeding. So I think that's kind of a funny story.
My last question for you here is if you could go back in time and talk with your younger self, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would give her?
Yeah. Well, if I could go back in time and talk to my younger self, oh, I would tell her to believe in herself a lot sooner and to listen to my own gut. I think that's my thing now is anytime I'm struggling to make a decision or I'm struggling to know what the right thing to do is, um, I try to listen to what my own self, my own gut is telling me. And I think I suppressed that for a really long time. You think like, oh, I don't know what is best for me. My parents know what's best for me, or what I hear in the news, or what I hear from our community culturally. But I really now try to listen to my own inner compass on things. And also a lot of things that are really most challenging become most valuable in life. So just because something's hard, I think doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I think if something's hard and you do it, later on you'll look back and you'll think like, oh wow, those were some of the most rewarding things I did in my life, were those really hard things. And I didn't want to do them because I knew they were going to be hard and they were going to take a lot of work and it was going to be a lot of sacrifice and it was going to be challenging and people were going to tell me I'm crazy or that I shouldn't do them or that I'm not worth it or that whatever the things are. But yes, I would have definitely gotten a coach way sooner. I always felt like, oh, I don't have the money or the connections to really, jump into investing in myself in a bigger way. But I think I could have jumped into baby steps of investing in myself in a bigger way sooner. And if I had believed more strongly in myself and my own confidence, then I think that I could have made the decision to do some of those things sooner. Um, and to try to move on faster, like life is actually, it feels long, but then it is also really kind of short. And to get caught up on some of these things that you feel like it weighs you down, to try to find a way to dig yourself out of it. So if you feel like you're stuck in a rut, you're stuck in a depression, to try to ask yourself, like, what would lift me up today or this week what things could I do to just start building some momentum? And this I find for myself, and then now that I'm a coach, I find it so much with my coaching clients, is that once you can start to get some momentum going, then it's like a snowball. When you first are at a top of a hill and it's so hard, you can barely get the snow to pack, and then you can't get it into a ball, and then it seems like nothing will stick together. But once you finally get the big bottom of the snowman with that ball built, then it starts to go down the hill, and it's going so fast with all this momentum. So creating momentum, I really think there's something to that. I also really believe in trying to keep promises to yourself. So whatever you tell yourself you're going to do, if you tell yourself you're going to do something, you really do need to do it, because that builds self-confidence, believing in your own promises to yourself. And maybe you can't deliver on everything immediately. Not everything is able to be immediately delivered on in life. But if you promise yourself, I'm going to clean my office, or this is going to be the year for me that I finally take action on my dream, or this is going to be the year that I really start to work on my health and I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z. I want to feel better, or I want to gain strength or lose weight, or whatever the thing is. That you do need, it's important to keep the promise to yourself, because that's how you realize that you can depend on yourself and that you can count on yourself. And the more you can count on yourself, then the more you believe in yourself. And the more you believe in yourself, the more you realize I can I can do anything, really. This is wild. This is wild. And one of the things in 2019, I had started a group program, because after I'd been coaching for a while, I thought, oh, I should do some like fun group programs. And I started a program called Action that was for small market actors and models to learn, success, connect, and succeed. And during that time, I uh, I published my first work, I guess, my own self-published work, which I'd like to write a book soon or someday, once I can prioritize that. But I published a calendar that's an 18-month calendar called the Courage to Dream calendar. And I did it for a few reasons. One, I felt like I wanted to have a culminating experience at the end of this program that I taught, where everyone could come in person and get together and be together, in a room, not just virtually on Zoom. And so I had people, I think, from 10 different states who participated in the program. And so some of them were part of this calendar. And my goal was that every calendar model got to share their story. Because one of the things that frustrated me when I was modeling was I felt like models were really voiceless, which has been changing a lot now, because a lot of people who get into modeling might become content creators, or doing brand deals, influencers, and they do have a voice and they share it. But then it was not so much a thing. So I wanted every model to be able to share something about their dream, about their story, about their life in their own words. And I really was sharing in the Courage to Dream mission that dreaming is a muscle, that we can really each benefit more from being encouraged to imagine our dreams, to reimagine our dreams, because I think we're told to dream when we're kids, but once we grow up and we're adults, it's not really a topic anymore. We don't really think about it. We don't really encourage people to dream and to imagine and to use your imagination of like what is real, like what could I make come to life. And and that I wanted that to be a message, especially for women and girls who, once they grow up, it's really uh, a strong message is that your focus now is on your family and your children and your husband, and not on your own dreams and goals, which certainly your family and your children and your husband is a big part of your own dreams and goals, but it might not be all of your dreams and goals necessarily. And that we each have a voice, and that I wanted everyone involved to share their stories of transformation and share their voice. And also that we each unlock one another's dreams and goals, that we're each the key to unlock one another's dreams and goals. So every single person you meet, you might be the catalyst that helps that person find out something about themselves, realize something about themselves, find their dream job, meet their dream partner. And that just shows like that there's so much interconnection between all of us and how we all really do help one another in this life.
Very well said. Very well said. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time today and being able to chat with you and hearing about your amazing journey and all these things that you've done. It's truly been an honor and hearing about all your different experiences and everything. It's been a wonderful experience.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show, Sam. And I have watched quite a few of your show's episodes now and plan to watch all of them. I think what you're doing is really amazing and impressive. A lot of interviews are so short form and fast paced that I think people don't get to really deep dive the way your show offers what you say it is. You know, back you backlot pass. You get the backlot pass. You get the deep dive. And you have a great way of asking really introspective questions that are really tailored to each of your guests. And that's so awesome. So thank you for what you're doing.